You know, every company has a digital front door, and we spend so much time talking about the locks, the alarms, and the walls we build to keep people out. But what happens when someone, inevitably, gets inside? Today, we're not talking about prevention. We're talking about what happens after the breach.
Let's kick things off with a quote that's basically become gospel in the cybersecurity world. And it's not just a clever line, right? It's a fundamental truth of our digital age. It tells you that an attack isn't just a possibility, it's a flat-out inevitability. The question isn't if a company gets hit, but when.
And when that day comes, believe me, the stakes are absolutely staggering. Just look at this number, $3.86 million. According to IBM, that was the average cost of single data breach back in 2020. That's enough to bankrupt a small business or seriously cripple a larger one, all from just one successful attack.
Okay, so this brings us to the most important question of all. If we accept that a breach is coming and we know the cost of failure is in the millions, what's the plan? What actually happens in those first few moments after the alarms go off?
Well, this is where our hero enters the story. Incident response, or IR for short. The best way to think about it is like the fire department for the digital world. It's not about building an unbreakable building. It's about having a team that's trained and equipped to manage the chaos the second the alarm sounds.
But to really get why this response is so critical today, we've got to understand who we're up against. And the evolution of the attacker, well, it's a fascinating story that started way, way before the first computer was ever even plugged in.
And I mean way before. Believe it or not, the first real data hack was in 1836. You had two bankers who bribed operators of France's telegraph system to get early market data. That's a classic man-in-the-middle attack 150 years before the internet. Now fast forward to 1988 and you get the Morris swarm. It was just an experiment that went wrong but ended up crippling 10% of the early internet. Then in 2010, everything changed with Stuxnet. This wasn't some accident, this was a digital weapon, malware designed to cause actual physical destruction at an Iranian nuclear facility. Suddenly, the age of cyber warfare was here.
And that brings us to today. The battlefield has changed completely. We're no longer just dealing with clever tricks or one-off experiments. We are facing a diverse, professional, and highly organized gallery of attackers.
And you've got to understand this evolution. The attackers went from being script kiddies, basically digital pranksters using borrowed tools, to sophisticated organized crime syndicates that operate just like corporations, all focused on theft. And now, at the very top, you have nation-states pouring insane amounts of resources into attacks designed for espionage and pure disruption.
The data really backs this up. A huge report from Verizon showed that organized crime and nation-states are behind the majority of these breaches. But here's the part that might surprise you. While we always picture some shadowy hacker in a hoodie, a full third of breaches involve internal actors. The call, as they say, is very often coming from inside the house.
So you have these super sophisticated professional attackers coming at you from every angle, which brings us to a really crucial point. The absolutely astronomical cost of failing to have a good response plan. Remember that $3.86 million figure? Well, that isn't a one-time hit. It unfolds over a painfully long time. The average breach takes 280 days. That is over 9 months just to identify and contain. Can you imagine that? 9 months of chaos, investigation, and spiraling costs before you can even begin to properly rebuild.
And this, right here, is the multi-million-dollar argument for incident response. Just look at the difference. According to IBM, companies that had a tested IR team still face the high cost, sure. But for those without a plan, the cost balloons by an extra $2 million. Preparation isn't just a good idea, it's a multi-million-dollar decision.
But hey, the damage isn't just measured in dollars and cents. A poorly handled breach can absolutely incinerate a company's most valuable asset, its brand. It just erodes customer trust, and once that's gone, it can take years to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. For a perfect real-world example, you don't have to look any further than Yahoo. When the full, staggering extent of their data breaches was revealed while they were being sold to Verizon, the company's valuation was slashed by $350 million. That is the tangible, cold, hard cash consequence of broken trust.
So if the old defenses are broken and the cost of failure is just catastrophic, what's the answer? Well, it requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about security altogether.
See, the old way of thinking was all about perimeter defense, building a digital castle with a huge moat.
That model is completely shattered now. The new way is something called cyber resilience. It's about accepting that attackers will get in and instead focusing on your ability to fight back, recover quickly, and adapt.
And this resilience is built on a clear, cyclical strategy. A modern IR plan isn't a panic button. First, you identify the threat. Then, you contain the damage to stop it from spreading. Next, you eradicate the root cause. Then, you recover your systems. And crucially, this is the most important part. You learn from the incident so it can't happen the same way ever again.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. Every single company is a target, and every digital wall can be breached. So are the companies that you trust with your data, your bank, your hospital, your employer, are they ready for what happens next? Are they resilient? Because in today's world, that might be the only question that truly matters.